Awesome. So thanks everybody for joining. We've got a packed half hour here, so let's get right into this. This is our FlexDeploy 5.5 overview. So we're gonna walk through the highlights of the new release that came out last weekend. It's super exciting, and I'd note this one thing before we jump in. 5.5 has a bit of a special meaning for us here at Flexagon. 5.5 could also be 55. And for those of you, depending on the type of music you listen to and when you were around, that would be Sammy Hagar, I Can't Drive 55. Why is that meaningful? I'll tell you in a minute. All right, so let's talk about this agenda real quickly. We're gonna go through the highlights, fire up a demo in a couple cases, and very importantly, as you continue with your implementation, regardless of where you're at, please, by all means, take advantage of the resources, right? So we've got blogs. We'll talk a lot about that today, webinars, workshops, lots of information. Okay, so at the end of this period, the session will go ahead and do some Q&A. All right, so please put your questions in the Q&A tab. All right, so why Sammy Hagar and why I Can't Drive 55? One of the very important parts of the of FlexDeploy and DevOps and CI/CD is speed. How do we accelerate the speed of your ability to deliver the services to the business? Regardless of what technology that you're using, we need to provide more speed, agility, speed, go faster, and very importantly, do it at scale. So what this particular slide represents is a view into that. So how can we become more agile, more automated, more continuous, faster, but do that with high quality and do that with whatever technologies that you're using here. All right, so many of you are very well aware of the capabilities of FlexDeploy as a platform, but just a refresher in case some of you are a little newer, it is both a platform for driving full CI/CD with build and deployment automation, release orchestration, as well as integrating that tool chain together to achieve these outcomes of speed, quality, cost, and managing risk and such. Okay, so with that said, if you haven't taken a look at the broad array of integrations and plugins and out-of-the-box capabilities, this is just some examples, by no means all-inclusive, but just take a scan across this. And if anything catches your eye, by all means jot that down, because know that you can take advantage of this type of capability because we continue to invest and extend what's out there with FlexDeploy. Okay, so with that said, that's all I was going to show in the brief setup. We're going to go to the into FlexDeploy here in a minute, but before we get to that, I'm going to go ahead and share a blog post. So some of you might have seen this. It's the FlexDeploy 5.5 blog post highlights. So in essence, we are now basically walking through a very brief overview of what was released here a couple days ago. So let's jump in here. One of the things is container support. So some of you might have already used this or are using the container support in the context of Docker, Kubernetes, and such. We have a very strong platform and set of capabilities going into 5.5. We accelerated that. We drove a significant amount of improvements there. Things like the new container project type. So you can easily set up your Docker and Kubernetes-based implementations. You can get things working rapidly, and then you can drive a very, very good productivity for developers, as well as just a great user experience in general to help with container-based deployments and making sure that the end-to-end lifecycle is managed very effectively. So in addition to the improved user experience, there's some neat scanning capability. So security, very important for everybody. In the container world, scanning containers is very important. So we've introduced a couple new plugins out of the box for Anchor and Docker Bench, and the ability to inject those very seamlessly. Okay, so let's go ahead and by the way, here's a container based CI/CD article. So I'll point to these along the way, but you'll go ahead and see that we've got a lot of really neat content for any topics that you want to drill into in detail. So I'm going to go ahead and go up to up to FlexDeploy and give you a sense for this in action. Now, just note that even if you're not using containers, some of these things will still apply, because I'm going to touch on a few different pieces of the capability that were released in 5.5 that can be applied elsewhere. Okay, so what are we looking at here? We're looking at a Naturs project. So it's set up, configured to work with Docker and Kubernetes, and it is a Node.js application. So it's a cloud native application built on Node.js, and a few things to note here. All right, one is if we go down to this tab, it's the container configuration. We'll notice that it's changed, if you're familiar with it, to make it very easy to be able to describe what do we want to do on the build side of the life cycle. Do we want to automate that build? Well, of course we do. Let's let FlexDeploy create that build image, that Docker image, and selectively push that image to your registry. So Docker Hub as an example. All right, so push that out there, do that completely automated. And if you want to tag the latest, you can go ahead and do so. Down a little further is the image scanning. So in this case, we're not doing a scan as part of the build immediately, but we could do the scan before a push or after the push. So there's some flexibility there. And then, of course, as part of what FlexDeploy does, we want to make sure that there's proactive notification. So if something failed more times than not, notify somebody, send it to a group, let them know, go ahead and resolve that problem and do that proactively. All right. So there's some of those configurations. Very easy to set up. You'll be off and running. A run container, also new. So not only can we make it easy to be able to build and push those new images to your image repository, we can also automatically run that container. So it's the deployment automation piece of that full life cycle. All right, so those are very important. On the Kubernetes side, some of this is similar, but it comes with just an improved user experience. A lot of this is easy to set up, much of which can be done through the blueprints. And you'll notice that it's easy to be able to set things up for both the deployment side, the core Kubernetes deployment, and also using Helm. So not to do a container tutorial, but Helm and Helm charts can be very effectively used to deploy into Kubernetes, including more complicated Kubernetes clusters. All right, so with that said, if we go back up to the base project view, a few other things that are important here. So if we go ahead and look at something that was done before, we had done a build. The build could be triggered automatically when a developer checks something into source control, for example, into Git or Subversion. And that did happen. It created the new Docker image, automatically pushed that into Docker Hub in this particular case, and then kicked off the deployment automatically. But you see this pre-deploy workflow. So remember, so pre-deploy workflow, what is that? It's a mechanism that's new in 5.5 that's very powerful. It can say, hey, at times you want to introduce or interject as part of your process something like a review. In this case, it's to review the results of a container scan that I'll show you. Did the container scan do and meet the security criteria? Now, you can automate a lot of these things, but it gives you an example how you can interject some other activity for a review. That might also apply, for example, you're going to make some database schema changes. Well, we can auto-generate those with the Oracle database plugin. Well, maybe you want to have the DBA or somebody review that beforehand. So we can set up these automated reviews and generate a report that can be reviewed and the associated task. So you can have that full life cycle of notify somebody, let them know they have something to do, have them do it. Okay, that worked. Let's move on, continue with the deployment. So full life cycle, robust set of capability there. So in this case, if we jump into the execution ID, you'll see that this pre-deploy is waiting. It's pending a review. It's completed that analyze image that was successful. And now we have a couple of these new tabs. One is a task which said, hey, this task to review this is sitting out there. Now, if we went up here to the tasks, looked at the human tasks, we would see that sitting out there. All right. Well, that person needs to do that verification. So we made it very easy to say, well, in this case, it's about container scanning. So we can look at this, we can say, well, here's exactly what happened. These are the results of my scan. And it gives me the information in context so I can do the review and continue down the path. So I could say, in this particular case, hey, that worked. And I went ahead and approved that or completed that task or what have you, but it allows it to incorporate that. And then, as you would expect, that's all trackable, traceable, auditable. So it's part of the end-to-end life cycle. All right, so hopefully you like that. Awesome container capability in 5.5. Out of the box container scanning, improved user experience. So if you're a developer, you're developing, you're really getting after it and driving that productivity. These other capabilities around tasks, around reports can be applied elsewhere. I mentioned the example of a database related change. It could be in Salesforce. It could be in lots of different places. All right, so let's get back to the rest of the story. Moving on, dynamic packages, a really neat situation here where we're going to apply this and use an example with this new SaaS capability for Oracle Transaction Business Intelligence. So it's really the BI part of your SaaS Fusion applications. They're all pre-built. They have complexity in terms of needing to be able to deploy these different artifacts, web catalog objects, such, across environments. So we've automated that process, making it very easy to incorporate that in with this out-of-the-box capability. Importantly, you'll see dynamic packages, another feature that will apply into the OTBI, but other spaces. In essence, what it does is, for those of you that have used partial deployment with FlexDeploy, which I assume many of you have, it's the ability for you to say, we're going to create this partial ability. We're going to create a package, and we can selectively pick and choose, user manage, the ability to take different subsets of what might be a whole. So it might be some small number of customizations for e-business suite, or it might be some business intelligence web catalog objects or otherwise. Take them and subset that, create a package, and then deploy that. So call that user managed partial deployment. Well, there are some use cases where maybe we don't want to pick and choose. Maybe we want to say, hey, here is a way to automate that, so we can point to a folder structure as an example and automatically manage that, automatically populate whatever those files are, and then let FlexDeploy with its change detection take care of all of that for you. So basically, you're letting FlexDeploy do the heavy lifting. You're automating more of the process, and truly allowing you to go faster, right? Allow FlexDeploy to do the work for you, and then provide that tracking and tracing and so on and so forth. So let's talk about that in a little more detail in the context of OTBI. So OTBI, as I mentioned, is the business intelligence that sits underneath and gets shipped with the cloud SaaS ERP from Oracle. So the Fusion apps, ERP, SCM, HCM, and such. Very important. Most customers love that BI capability. However, there's some challenges with migrating those changes, the OTBI changes. Well, 5.5, excellent support here. So let's just take a look at that, and you will see what that means. So ultimately, it's similar to what you would see with any other technology that you might be using FlexDeploy for. So if you're using it for Oracle Business Suite, if you're using it for database, middleware, right? If you're using it for Salesforce or other technologies, a lot of these things will be very familiar to you. So we applied that same set of build and deployment into OBI. Now, this is an excellent blog article. And we, as a matter of fact, worked with some customers in a beta, and having worked with them, and they've proved it out. They love it, and they're applying it because they're actually shifting from their e-business suite to cloud ERP and using this capability. So please read this, try to understand it. It's well written, and I'm scrolling through here because a lot of it is the basics of how you set up FlexDeploy to work with a technology. You create the workflows, you configure FlexDeploy to talk with the different environments, in this case some SaaS environments, right, running in Oracle's cloud, and then set that up. Now it shows an example where you could use this user managed partial deployment, such as what's on this picture. So I'll blow that up and you'll see, okay, yep, there it is. We're looking at the project files tab. We can see our web catalog objects and we could select the ones that we want. All right. Well, we can also take advantage of this other capability with dynamic packages and set that up. So if I scroll down and blow up that window, you'll see that the package type is set to dynamic versus user managed. And there's a few other things, an include and exclude path. So you can simply point this to say, hey, I'm going to point this to shared custom financials payables. Okay, set that up. And then FlexDeploy is going to pay attention to that folder and then automatically figure out, what's in that folder and apply the build and deployment automation to that. Now, very importantly, and as you know, a key piece of this is that FlexDeploy has that change detection. So it knows exactly what's deployed where, and it can automatically, when it deploys something, only deploy the things that have changed. So again, you let FlexDeploy do the heavy lifting, and this capability, both for OTBI and with the dynamic packages, is a huge, I'd say, advancement in terms of further improving the overall experience, productivity, and such. All right, let's go back here and keep rolling. We've got another thing in the Oracle SaaS space, CX Commerce. It's an excellent storefront tool, very extensible, right? Very rich and robust. And we've been investing there, including with the first release in 5.5, to be able to support what's called these Commerce Cloud server extensions. So think of them as, well, they're extensions to be able to customize something. You need to take those customizations and deploy them across some number of environments. Well, we now have the out-of-the-box support to be able to do that. So you'll be off and running and improving that and doing full CI/CD or your more traditional deployments, but automating them, making sure that all the changes are trackable and traceable. All of the things that you know and love about FlexDeploy applied to CX Commerce, just like are now available for the Oracle SaaS OTBI. All right. A nice blog here as well. Please look at that CX Commerce blog. On to Salesforce. All right, so we talk a lot about the Oracle ecosystem and the enhancements there and just the tremendous amount of breadth and depth we have for Oracle. Well, many of you know that FlexDeploy goes way beyond that. We talked about containers, which can be deployed to anywhere. Oracle Kubernetes Engine, GKE, Google's, Amazon, Azure, certainly all of that. Another good example is Salesforce. Some of you use FlexDeploy for Salesforce. Fantastic support going in to 5.5 and some really neat examples here. So I'm going to jump into demo again. Take a look at this specific blog post. This blog post showcases a bunch of quality and automated testing examples and what you can do with Salesforce, some of which are the 5.5 capability. So let's go back up into FlexDeploy. Nope, that's the wrong one. I've got to scroll around here a little bit. All right, let's jump into the Salesforce project. You'll see that, well, this is Salesforce, and we can do things like org management, right? How do we manage org to orgs? How do we do those comparisons? How do we take things and automatically commit them into source control? So if you're not a Salesforce user and you have Salesforce, by all means, look at the capability from the ground up. If you're using it for Salesforce today, here's the example on what I'm going to show you, whereby we can quickly set up FlexDeploy. I'll go to a release and take a look at the Salesforce dashboard. And we'll note that in here, not only do we do some initial validation at deployment time, we can validate the unit tests and make sure that they hit some percentage that's configured so it qualifies for success. And then some other code coverage, and very important, the security related scanning. So for those of you that have heard of or know PMD, it's a static code analysis tool. We've implemented the out-of-the-box capability to integrate with that and incorporate that seamlessly into the end-to-end life cycle. All right, we got to roll. Talk about speed and Sammy Hagar. Let's keep rocking and rolling. Move up to about 125. All right, security. As you know, role-based security, very important. You all use it. Things like single sign-on, multi-factor authentication, all important. Managing credentials in FlexDeploy is very important. FlexDeploy has in the platform a credential store, right, that secures them, makes them accessible and easily managed. We also have integration with lots of third-party secrets management, and Thycotic is very popular, and the latest third-party secrets management tool that we now provide out of the box. So in addition to CyberArk, in addition to HashiCorp Vault and Azure Key Vault, we now support Thycotic. And I know a handful of customers that use Thycotic. They'll love this. Okay, pre-deploy workflows. All right, this is some additional capability. We talked a little bit about this just briefly, but it's in essence, it's the capability that I showed a little earlier, where we said we can set up a pre-deploy to do things like a review. That's this concept of a blueprint, right? So, hey, this is what we're going to do, or you need to do this as part of your overall process. Incorporate that into the process. So we're not going to talk about that anymore. We talked a little bit about the workflow execution, the ability to have the reports, the tasks, and have that as part of your end-to-end workflow. So we used that example before with containers, where we're going to do a container scan. We're going to say, hey, we need to have this pre-deploy step, and as part of that, we need to review the results of the container scan, make sure it was what we needed, and then move on if it was. All right. So just think about that. Read through this information, and my gut says that you're gonna love it, and you're gonna be able to apply this to other use cases within your implementations today, or as you continue to evolve the FlexDeploy implementation. All right, moving on. New and improved plugins. We've talked about a few of these already. So we've got the container-based scanning capability around Docker Bench and Anchor. We have the two Oracle SaaS products with plugins for CX Commerce and OTBI. And then the improved part of the new and improved is ongoing investment in a handful of other plugins, Docker, Salesforce, Terraform. You're reading these, but others that we've had in the market for a while, continue to invest and improve. So if you're using these, or if you're just considering evolving and starting using them, dig into this. Lots of really good stuff. And here are some blog posts that give you some other information. ODI as an example, a couple ODI blog posts. And then we're getting groovy here at Flexagon and helping our customers get groovy as well. And so this is a neat way to say, hey, we can use things like Groovy or other scripting languages to extend, and you might say customize, or meet use cases that are pretty cool, right? And so these just give you a little bit of an example for what that might be. Isolated networks. Some customers have a challenge, if you will, and usually driven because of security, to take their environments and isolate them completely. No communication between environments. And so that's a challenge, that's a reality, and now we've got an awesome solution in what we call isolated networks. So in short, we allow you to configure FlexDeploy and maintain that network isolation, while also allowing you to use FlexDeploy to deploy across all of those environments, and very importantly, keep the integrity of things like the audits, the tracking and tracing of what's running where, so you can still do a build once, deploy many, and have that auditability from end to end. It's beautiful. So check it out if that happens to be something that you're interested in. All right, now, very importantly, usability and user experience. This one is in the form of here's 12 things in the last year that floated to the top in terms of UX. So this one, highly recommend you take a look at this. Dig into the 12 different examples here, and some of these were shipped in 5.5, but to a large extent sprinkled out over the last year. So the idea is improve the experience, whether that's implementing initially, whether that's your evolution, whether it's improving something that you already are using. Lots and lots of capability, some small, some big, and take a look at them. All right. So we're going to be wrapping up here. Take a couple questions if you haven't popped them into the Q&A. I've already mentioned this, but please take a look at the blogs, the webinars, the workshops. This is a great example where you've got highlighting a summary of 5.5 that's now ready for you to grab onto, and a lot of resources to help you understand what it is and how to take advantage of it. All right, we've got a couple minutes left. Let's turn this over and see what we have for questions. Rebecca, do we have any questions from the participants?
Yep. Hey, Dan. Only question I'm seeing right now is just someone wondering if you can share a little bit more about the roadmap and what's coming up next.
Oh, okay. Well, oh boy, in 2 minutes, that's a challenge. I guess I'll summarize it this way. We have extensive support in so many different areas. It's both refinement and improvements in what's already robust, as well as other things like ongoing support for cloud native development, SaaS applications. Boy, where to start? It's so many different areas in terms of where we're helping enable end-to-end software development and management, right, of an end-to-end life cycle. So you can go faster, better, cheaper, right? You can spend more time as developers developing, as administrators working up the food chain, as release managers trying to get your head around what are all these moving parts, and whether we're delivering daily into production, weekly, monthly, quarterly, all of the above. How do you manage that? Or if you're in some type of other leadership role or executive role. Further investments in automation, controls, governance, insights, helping you be better at what you do to support the businesses. Now, very important, I guess I will make one comment about the release cadence. I guess that comes to mind. I think you're all aware of this, but we release monthly. We drink our own champagne, we eat our own dog food, whatever way you want to say it. We deliver monthly, and we deliver not only bug fixes in those monthly things, but new enhancements, new plugins, improvements, usability improvements. So please pay attention to that. Look for those. If you're not on our blog, sign up for the blog. Try to keep current. Some of our customers are extremely aggressive. Some have already upgraded to 5.5, and that's been out for a couple days now. So if you would, I would highly recommend you look at those monthly releases. Nothing else to keep up to speed on what's coming out. And then also we release the 2 or 3 majors like 5.5 every year. Okay. So with that said, I know we've hit our 30 minutes. We'll call that a wrap here today. Hope you really enjoy 5.5, and by all means, please share your feedback. We'd love to hear it, any input, any thoughts. So thanks for being great customers. Appreciate that, and have a great rest of your day and enjoy 5.5.